Hi everyone, and welcome again to Nettle, the go-to place to learn about business, finance, economics, and much more. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click that bell notification button below so that you never miss fresh videos and tutorials you might be interested in. Many thanks to our current Patreon supporters and YouTube members for making this video possible, and we'd also greatly appreciate if you consider supporting us as well. So please check the link in the description or click the join button below for more details. My name is Seba, and today we're investigating a key concept and a very famous model in portfolio management and allocation optimization, and arguably all of quantitative finance, that is the Black-Litterman model that has been proposed in the 1990s by Black and Litterman, first while they were working in the industry, and then it was published and gained quite notorious academic attention. And the idea is that the Black-Litterman model builds quite heavily upon modern portfolio theory, but it takes the logic of the equilibrium on capital markets to its logical conclusion. It basically believes in the efficiency of the portfolio frontier, and it believes that the tangency portfolio exists for a reason. And Black-Litterman model, in that case, can be a very useful technique to, first of all, check whether some expected returns, for example, CAPM expected returns, are consistent with the capital market equilibrium, and also to introduce your own beliefs into the expected returns, the deviations from equilibrium that you believe can be warranted, to guide your investment allocation. And we'll evidence the Black-Litterman model's applicability and power on a quite simple case, and we'll build it from scratch based on the matrix efficient portfolio frontier model that was introduced by Merton. We've got a separate video on that, so if you're interested just in the matrix efficient portfolio frontier model, please check this video out first. However, here we'll focus on its modification with the Black-Litterman approach. So we have got 10 years worth of data on 5 established US stocks, as well as the S&P 500 index. And we've got 10 years worth of data from year-end 2011 until year-end 2021. We'll calculate daily returns for each of the stocks and the index as well, by just dividing the price today by the price yesterday subtracting 1, and enforcing it for all of our 6 series and across the whole sample. We'll need to make an assumption about the risk-free rate. That's crucial both for CAPM expected returns, that will be the starting point for our Black-Litterman optimization, and also for the tangency portfolio construction. And we'll also calculate the historical and the CAPM expected returns here. So for an annualized historical return, we can simply divide the price at the very end by the price at the very start, raise it to the power of 1 over 10, and subtract 1. And obviously here we're using total return indices instead of prices to take into account both capital gains and dividends. You can apply it for prices as well if you're interested in short-term investment or you don't really care about dividend yield. This is not a major issue in the application of the model. We can see that the historical returns of these 5 stocks range from around 12% per annum to 20% per annum, and they are all in quite reasonable magnitude, with the market return at 14.25%. However, to calculate CAPM expected return, we can calculate our daily betas for our sample for each of the 5 stocks using just the slope function and regressing effectively daily stock returns onto the daily market returns. And here, as the market is the same for all 5 stocks, we'll lock the columns obviously. And that gives us the estimate of all 5 betas. We can double check that the beta of the S&P 500 index against itself is indeed 1, which means that we have applied the calculation correctly. And then we can use the CAPM formula, which is the risk-free rate, and here we'll lock the column as the risk rate is the same for all 5 stocks, and then we add the stock-specific beta and the equity risk premium, which is the return of the market, which is locked column-wise as the market is the same for all 5 stocks, minus the risk-free rate, which is locked in terms of the column as well. And we have got 5 estimated CAPM expected returns. We see that most of them are a little bit smaller than the historical returns, and we'll use the CAPM returns as the starting point of our investigation. In terms of the covariance matrix, which is a center point of Merton efficient portfolio frontier model that will start from and then gravitate towards Black-Litterman. We will use the index method here. We have got a separate video on how to use 3 different approaches to estimate covariance matrices correctly and efficiently in Excel, so check this out if you're interested in this application. Here we'll just quickly refresh the index function method. So we'll use the covariance.s function, sample covariance, and we'll refer to the index of the stocks from the first row. Here we need to log both columns and rows. We'll refer to the first index in here in this row, and then we'll go all the way to the very last row of data over here, locking it both column and row wise as well, and referring to the same index, so P8, which is the first index in the row of index variables, and the second array that would go towards our covariance calculation would be different only in terms of its index variable. It would be not P8 but the O9 column locked here, as that's the first column which has indices in it. And then, having inputted this, we can multiply it by 252 as covariance scaled linearly, and we want it to be annualized to match our return frequency. And that calculates covariances for all of our 5 sample stocks and pairwise covariances with variances in the diagonal as usual. And the key component of the Merton matrix model is the inverse covariance matrix that we can calculate using the M-inverse function, matrix inverse, plugging in the covariance matrix and enforcing the formula. And next we can proceed with just quickly specifying and refreshing the Merton's model. First, we start with 2 vectors, which is a unit vector, vector of ones of length equal to the number of stocks in our investable universe, here it's 5, and the R vector, which is the vector of expected returns. Here we'll copy our expected returns as per CAPM and paste them as values, as we would want to change them to preserve the capital market equilibrium as per the Black-Litterman model. And we'll calculate the H vector and the G vector for our risk and return optimization. So for the H vector, we would matrix multiply the unit vector E on the right by the inverse covariance matrix. And for the vector G, we'll do exactly the same, but with the return, or the expected return vector instead, giving us 2 vectors that we'll use quite extensively in our further calculations. Now we have 4 constants that characterize our investable universe and the risk-return relationship. This is the specification of the efficient portfolio frontier function. However, we are not interested necessarily in specifying the frontier itself. We're interested in the tangency portfolio and the weights of the tangency portfolio and how they relate to the global capital market equilibrium. But we can use the sum product function here to calculate all of our constants for the investable universe nevertheless. So for the alpha, we sum product our unit vector onto the H vector. For beta, we sum product the E vector, the unit vector, onto the G vector. And here, again, I cannot stress that enough, we are not referring to beta as market beta in terms of the slope of returns of the stock onto returns of the market. This is a constant in the risk-return relationship in the efficient portfolio frontier. Obviously, it causes some confusion, but don't be confused here. These 2 betas refer to completely different things. Here we calculate beta by sum producting the unit vector onto the G vector, and finally, the gamma constant is the sum product of the expected returns vector onto the G vector. And the delta is just the normalizing term, which is alpha times gamma minus beta squared. Why do we need to input this specification here? Well, it is to obtain the closed form solution for the tangency portfolio to ease our convergence for the numerical optimization of the Black-Litterman expected returns. And the tangency portfolio can be proven to have an expected return that is defined by gamma, beta, and alpha, as well as the risk-free rate. And this is because the securities market line starts at the risk-free rate at risk of 0, and then slopes upward until it crosses at tangency the efficient portfolio frontier. So that's why the risk rate is relevant for this calculation, and that's why it was important for us to input this assumption over here. So to figure out the tangency portfolio, we can input this formula, taking gamma minus beta times the risk rate that we've inputted at the top, divided by beta minus alpha times the risk rate as well. And we see that the return of the tangency portfolio in this investable universe is 13.28%. However, we are not only concerned with the return, but also with the weightings of the tangency portfolio and how they correspond to the equilibrium weights that are given by the market caps. As if CAPM assumptions hold true, all investors are investing in some combination of the tangency portfolio and the risk rate, as all investors have the same beliefs, have the same investment horizon, and are risk averse. So they would invest in a combination of the risk-free rate and the tangency portfolio. So the only proportion in which they would allocate their capital towards stocks would be the tangency portfolio weights, which means that market caps are observable variables that determine the tangency portfolio allocation at equilibrium. And this is the heuristic or the concept that the Black-Litterman model builds on quite heavily. So let's see how consistent our tangency portfolio given CAPM returns is when we compare it to value weights in a market cap weighted portfolio. To do that, we need to weigh H and G vectors according to the lambda and mu constants, which effectively weigh the minimum variance portfolio and the zero risk-free tangency portfolio together to arrive at the tangency portfolio for a given risk-free rate. So lambda is the weight of the minimum variance portfolio, and mu is the value of the tangency portfolio at zero risk-free rate. So if risk rate was zero, the whole calculation would be a lot simpler. We could have just used the mu and proceeded from there. However, as we want to arrive or derive the Black-Litterman model for any risk-free rate, this complication is necessary. Lambda, as the weight of the H vector, equals gamma minus beta times our target return. And our target return is the tangency return here. And we scale it by delta, which means that we go slightly short on the minimum variance or the minimum risk portfolio. For mu, we can multiply alpha times the tangency return or target return here, subtract beta, and divide it by delta, showing that we go long on the tangency portfolio that is represented by the zero risk-free rate. And finally, we can perform the weighting, multiplying lambda by H and adding mu times G, showing us that we have got a portfolio that adds up to 100%, which means that it's an investable portfolio, and it has quite believable weights. For example, it doesn't short sell anything, and it allocates the capital roughly evenly. Well, it does overweigh into Johnson & Johnson and JP Morgan here, almost 30% exposures here, and it does underweigh quite a bit into Valerian, which is an 8% exposure. However, is it consistent with market caps? We'll see it just in a second. Before we do that, I wanted to gravitate your attention towards the lambda and mu calculations and how they can be intuitively understood. As you recall, the return of the minimum variance portfolio can be represented as beta over alpha. So here, if the return that we seek is beta over alpha, mu would be zero, and we'll be effectively just long in the minimum variance portfolio. Whereas, if the risk rate is zero, the return of the tangency portfolio simplifies to simply gamma over beta, and that makes lambda equal to zero, and we would be just longing mu. This is the relationship that is crucial towards understanding target returns and the efficient portfolio frontier concept, as well as the Black-Litterman model and the equilibrium as well. So here we need to compare those weights that we have obtained given these assumptions about the returns if you recall, we used CAPM over here. And the value weights. To calculate the value weights, we can sum up all of the market caps and then divide each of the individual stocks market caps by the sum to get value weights. And obviously we lock the column for the sum of value weights here. We can drag it around and see that the value weights are quite similar to our portfolio weights, albeit there are some discrepancies, most notably for VLO and for Oracle. So here we can use the sum squared deviations of portfolio weights from value weights as our objective function that we would seek to minimize in the Black-Litterman framework by varying the Black-Litterman expected returns consistent with the global capital markets equilibrium. So we can use the sum squared function and input the difference between the portfolio weights and the value weights over here. And finally, we can go to data solver and specify our task. We want our deviation, so cell P44, to be minimized by changing the variable cells with our Black-Litterman returns, which are copied as values over here. And we are not necessarily requiring the returns to be positive. However, it is a reasonable assumption to make most of the time. But let me show you that even if you don't make this assumption, the model here does converge to positive expected return values if we maintain the capital markets equilibrium in the Black-Litterman framework. So we can stick with the nonlinear gradient descent, click solve, and wait until the algorithm converges. It has just converged. So we have achieved an asset allocation that's extremely consistent with value weights. The only deviation that's visible is here. Allocation Walmart is off by just a basis point, which is very, very negligible. And we see that our expected returns here have changed to reflect the global capital markets equilibrium. And quite handily, we can compare them to the CAPM expected returns and see that if we believe that current market caps reflect the global capital market equilibrium, we see that the market is expecting much lower return for VLO than CAPM suggests, and quite a bit higher return on Walmart than the CAPM suggests. And obviously that is not the final point in applying Black-Litterman model in practice, because having calculated those consistent returns, we could adjust them up or down depending on what we believe undervalued or overvalued stocks are. For example, if we believe that JP Morgan is overvalued and it would have a lower return than implied by the capital market equilibrium, we can adjust it downward, for example, 1 percentage point to 15.5%. Or if we believe that Walmart is actually undervalued and it would have a higher return than implied by the global capital market equilibrium, we can adjust it upward, for example, by half a percentage point to 10.49%. And that would produce a portfolio that was starting as a global capital market equilibrium, however, adjusted reflecting the beliefs of an analyst or a portfolio manager. And that is all we've got for the application of Black-Litterman model to a universe of 5 stocks and its place in modern portfolio theory, its refinements, and the concept of global capital market equilibrium. Please leave a like on this video if you found it helpful. In the comments below, I make any further suggestions for videos in business, finance, or economics you would like me to record. And please don't forget to subscribe to our channel or consider supporting us on Patreon. Thank you very much, and stay tuned.